Two sisters, 8 years of smiles, endless hugs on camera. But when the cameras stopped rolling, something was very different. For decades, people wonder what really happened between Melissa Sue Anderson and Melissa Gilbert on the set of Little House on the Prairie. They played the closest of sisters. But in real life, they went their separate ways and never looked back. Now, after all these years, we finally know the truth. And honestly, it might surprise you. Let me take you back to 1974. A young girl named Melissa Sue Anderson walked into an audition room with more than 500 other hopefuls. She was only 11 years old, but there was something different about her. She had this quiet confidence, this calmness that made the casting director stop and pay attention. Out of all those girls, she got the role of Mary Ingalls on Little House on the Prairie. It was the opportunity of a lifetime. At the same time, another girl named Melissa Gilbert was cast as Laura Ingalls. She was only 9 years old and already had tons of experience from doing commercials since she was practically a baby. She was bubbly, energetic, and loved being around people. The two Melissas were about to become TV sisters, and America was about to fall in love with them. In the beginning, everything seemed perfect. When you watched those early episodes, you could feel the warmth between them. They carried milk buckets together. They churned butter side by side. They looked like real sisters who genuinely cared about each other. The show became a massive hit, and these two young actresses were at the heart of it all. Families gathered around their televisions every week to watch the Ingalls sisters navigate life on the prairie. It was wholesome, it was beautiful, and it felt real. But behind the scenes, things were starting to shift. Even in those early years around 1975, crew members began noticing something. The two girls were very different people. Melissa Sue Anderson was quiet and reserved. During breaks, she would go back to her trailer alone. She would read her scripts, study her lines, and keep to herself. She took her work incredibly seriously, even as a child. Some people thought she was just shy. Others wondered if she was being standoffish. Melissa Gilbert, on the other hand, was the complete opposite. She loved being social. She played pranks on set, hid people's lunchboxes, and switched props around as jokes. She laughed with the crew and bonded with everyone. She brought energy and fun to the set. For her, making a show was not just about the work. It was about the friendships and the memories, too. At first, these differences did not seem like a big deal. They were just two kids with different personalities. But as the years went on, that gap started to widen. By 1977, people on set could feel the distance growing. They were not fighting or arguing. There was no big dramatic blow-up. It was more like they existed in two separate worlds, even though they were together every single day. Then came 1978, and Melissa Sue Anderson delivered one of the most powerful performances of her young career. In the episode called I'll Be Waving As You Drive Away, she had to do a long emotional scene about her character's feelings toward her mother. She dug deep into her own life experiences to make that scene feel real. Her parents had divorced when she was 13, and she carried that pain with her. When the scene aired, people cried. Critics called it heartbreaking. And Melissa Sue Anderson became the only cast member from Little House on the Prairie to ever be nominated for an Emmy for lead actress in a drama series. That kind of recognition changed things. Suddenly, Melissa Sue was being seen as a serious actress, the one who could handle the heavy emotional work. Meanwhile, Melissa Gilbert was still playing the spirited, adventurous Laura. Both roles were important, but they required very different approaches. And those different approaches started to create even more separation between the two girls. The biggest test came between 1979 and 1980, when Mary Ingalls went blind. This was a massive storyline that took weeks to film. Melissa Sue prepared for it by spending time at the Foundation for the Junior Blind. She learned how blind people moved, how they used canes, and even how to read Braille. She wore heavy prosthetics on her eyes for hours at a time. Some days, those prosthetics stayed on for 12 hours straight. It was exhausting and emotionally draining. During this time, Melissa Sue became even more withdrawn. She used method acting techniques, which meant she stayed in character even when the cameras were not rolling. She rehearsed alone. She stayed in her trailer. She avoided group meals and social gatherings. To her, this was what she needed to do to give an authentic performance. But to Melissa Gilbert, it felt like rejection. Here they were, playing sisters going through this incredibly difficult journey together. And Melissa Sue would not even spend time with her off-camera. Melissa Gilbert later wrote about this in her memoir. She talked about how she felt invisible during that time. She watched Melissa Sue transform, becoming more polished and mature-looking. Melissa Sue started wearing long nails and makeup, and she looked older than her age. Meanwhile, Melissa Gilbert still looked like a kid. She felt left behind. She felt like she was not getting the same attention or respect. And even though she tried to reach out, the connection just was not there. People on set noticed all of this. Directors would gently encourage Melissa Sue to join group activities. They wanted the cast to feel like a family, but you cannot force that kind of closeness. By November 1979, the pattern was set. Melissa Sue stayed focused and solitary. Melissa Gilbert stayed social and connected to everyone else. The two Melissas were living parallel lives that barely intersected. The tabloids, of course, had a field day with all of this. Rumors started flying. Some said they were competing for Michael Landon's attention. Others claimed there were jealous fights and backstage drama. Magazines printed stories about feuds and rivalry. The truth was much simpler and much less dramatic, but nobody wanted to hear that. Drama sells. Conflict gets clicks. So the rumors kept growing, even though both actresses said over and over again that it was not that serious. In 1980, Melissa Sue won a Daytime Emmy Award for a different project. She was only 16 years old, and she beat out adult actors to win. That same year, she filmed some of the most difficult scenes of her entire Little House run. There was an episode where her character lost a baby in a fire. The set was filled with explosions and smoke. Melissa Sue has said many times that she cannot watch that episode even now. It was too intense, too real, too traumatic. The emotional toll of scenes like that stayed with her long after filming ended. By 1982, Melissa Sue Anderson had had enough. She left Little House on the Prairie after 8 seasons. Her last episode was emotional. She cried as she said goodbye to the set she had known since childhood. She was 19 years old and terrified of being stuck as Mary Ingalls forever. She wanted new challenges. She wanted to prove she could do more. Some tabloids claimed she was fired for having a bad attitude, but she set the record straight. She turned down a salary cut because she wanted to grow her career. It was her choice to leave. After that, the two Melissas went in completely different directions. Melissa Gilbert stayed in Hollywood. She kept acting and eventually became the president of the Screen Actors Guild from 2001 to 2005. She fought for young actors and worked to protect them from the kind of struggles she had seen growing up in the industry. She stayed visible, stayed active, and stayed connected to the entertainment world. Melissa Sue Anderson, on the other hand, stepped away from the spotlight. She moved to Canada in 2007 and became a Canadian citizen. She created a quiet life far from cameras and reporters. She focused on her family and her privacy. She did not do many interviews. She did not attend many reunions. She simply chose a different path, one that did not include fame or constant public attention. For years, people kept asking the same question. Why did not they talk? Why did not they reconnect? What really happened between them? The rumors never stopped. Online forums kept the drama alive. Fans debated and speculated. Some took sides. Some blamed one or the other. But the truth was never as dramatic as people wanted it to be. Then came June 2025, and everything became clear. There was a Little House on the Prairie reunion event, and Melissa Gilbert spoke openly about the situation. She was 61 years old by then, and she was done letting other people control the narrative. She explained it simply. They were two very different people with very different temperaments. One liked quiet and focus. The other liked conversation and connection. They drifted apart naturally over time. There was no big fight, no betrayal, no dramatic falling out. They just were not close, and that was okay. Melissa Sue Anderson had said something similar back in 2009 in her memoir. She talked about how her shyness was often misunderstood. People thought she was cold or mean, but really, she was just introverted. She needed alone time to recharge. She needed space to process the heavy emotions she was carrying from her work. The intense storylines, especially that fire episode where her character's baby died, took a real toll on her mental health. She carried trauma from those scenes for years. Understanding that context helps explain why she kept her distance. Both women have been very clear about this. They respect each other. They acknowledge each other's talent. But they are not friends, and they never really were. They were co-workers. They were professional colleagues who did amazing work together. But when the work ended, so did their connection. And honestly, that is not unusual. How many of us stay close to every single person we have ever worked with? Probably not many. The real lesson here is that we, as fans, sometimes create stories that are not true. We see two people on screen and assume their real lives match what we are watching. We want them to be best friends forever because that is what makes us feel good. But that is not fair to them. They are real people with real feelings and real boundaries. They do not owe us a friendship just because we love their characters. Looking back now, it is actually kind of beautiful how professional they both were. Despite their differences, despite the distance, they showed up and gave incredible performances. They made us believe in the love between Mary and Laura Ingalls. They made us cry, laugh, and feel connected to a family that was not even real. That takes serious skill and dedication. Melissa Sue Anderson went on to do horror films, TV movies, and voice acting work. She challenged herself and proved she was more than one role. Melissa Gilbert continued to shine in Hollywood and used her platform to help others. Both of them succeeded on their own terms. Both of them built lives they are proud of, and both of them have made peace with the fact that they were not meant to be lifelong friends. So there you have it. The mystery is solved. There was no scandal, no betrayal, no ugly fight. Just two different people who worked together, respected each other, and then moved on with their lives. Sometimes the truth is not as exciting as the rumors, but it is always more honest. If you found this story as fascinating as I did, do me a favor. Hit that like button. Share this video with someone who loved Little House on the Prairie. And if you have not already, subscribe to this channel because we are diving deep into more Hollywood stories that will surprise you. Let's keep the conversation going in the comments. What do you think about Melissa Sue and Melissa Gilbert's relationship? Were you surprised by the truth? I want to hear your thoughts. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.